Rock gambling casino licenses, and they operate casinos all over the world, making gigantic amounts of money. Now, Old Kings Road is on your right, and this is the authentic 1740 route. We're not on Old Kings Road anymore. They still call this, but it isn't. But the original road is to your right, coming up on your right here. Can you see it? You're going to see a little piece of it. That's the 1740 road. Right there. There it is. Okay, now that road just happened to run right through the middle of this Masonic cemetery, which of course got my interest because I wrote a book to search for Old Kings Road, and I found little bits of it all over Flagler County. My son was nice enough to fly his airplane up here, and by using a GPS system we were able to fly over Flagler County and try to trace Old Kings Road, and we found bits and pieces everywhere. We were able to trace it by airplane. Of course, I would have preferred a helicopter, but I had a free airplane, so I didn't want to turn that down. But anyway, we're coming up on the turn in, and we can find it here. It's not marked at all on the Masonic cemetery. And I want to mention this cemetery is still very much in use. There are thousands of graves here, and every Veterans Day, these are marked because we have veterans buried here from World War II, World War I, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and this is an African American cemetery, but no one knows is here. And if our driver could find it, it's an accomplishment. Here we are. It's not marked. On your immediate right is Old Kings Road, right here. And I've been down this, I've actually dug on this, and some of the original paving of Old Kings Road is right there, the shell paving on your right. And this is Old Kings Road we're on right now. This is the real one that ran right through the cemetery. And this is an active cemetery. It's still very much in use. And again, no one knows it's here. But there's thousands and thousands of graves in here. It covers a large area. Bet you didn't know this was here.
No.
We're going to take you to a few spots that you might know existed. Now this is, don't be fooled by this little area you see. This is a large area. There's a lot of space here. And as I say, we're on Old Kings Road right now.
He likes to move. He can't fix that wall.
1774. If you can imagine a stagecoach coming down this road, maybe a wagon with mules. Been a lot of people travel into Florida right where you're at. And I've said before, this was the invention of tourism. This is where it was invented. Now, of course, it just went straight. It didn't make the turn that we're going to make. But this is the Masonic Cemetery, and it's run out of the church in Espanola, Reverend Giddings. Which we will see. We'll be out there in a little while. When I came down here as a kind of a Yankee from up north, I was kind of running away from the sheriffs and what's known as financial difficulties. And I ended up down here. And this was about 24 years ago. And I needed something to do. And I went to the county commission. I said, hey, I'll make an internet site for you. And they said, what's an internet? Nobody had ever heard of it. So we made an internet site for something that no one could see. And this put me in contact with the county lawyer. His name was Al Hadid, who was a great historian. And he had boxes and boxes of historical records. And they didn't know what to do with them. So I ended up with them. And I started reading these papers, and I said, my goodness, this is unbelievable. And one thing led to another, and I was hooked. Boy, it was like being on drugs. Once you learn about the history of this county, you can't let go of it. I mean, it's really interesting, because you remember Florida evolved very different from the rest of the United States. Florida didn't become part of the USA until about 1821, which is in history is like a week ago. So Florida really was very, very different from the rest of the country. And once you get into it, it's pretty interesting. Now, of course, this is called today Graham Swamp. But remember that this was once this immense wetland that ran all the way down to the Tomoka River. And it was huge. Remember that city hall that we saw made of coquina rock? Well, the county has like a coquina mine right up here, and this is where the rock was dug up and cut. Now, coquina is the ancient compression of ancient shells, millions and millions of years old, from the ancient ocean that covered Florida. And the early Indians used these coquina ridges, which were like reefs, as roadways, and because they were looking for dry land. Well, right here is where that rock was cut, right immediately where we're going to go. This was the shoreline of the ancient ocean millions of years ago. Remember, Flagler Beach didn't exist. It was just probably a pile of sand in the ocean. But the shore of the ocean was right here, right where you're at right now. And if you look on your right, you'll see the ridge and the coquina mine that actually exists. You'll see a big raised area of coquina rock, which was the shoreline of the ocean millions of years ago. And right here, you can see it. See, there it is. See the coquina ridge? That's it. Right there. That's the shoreline of the ocean. And that's where these guys cut this rock. And they got the rock to build that beautiful city hall. Now, over the years, this place has been diced, sliced, drained, turned into gated communities. It's changed dramatically. This was once the great supplier of the Florida aquifer. So when the people in Miami turn on their water taps and nothing comes out, it's because they built a gated community here in Flagler County. Because they really messed up the swamp. It just doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. But this was fresh water. And just think how unusual it was back then to find fresh water adjacent to the salty ocean. This was really amazing. And the British surveyors were just staggered by this place. And they drew many maps about this place. There was a surveyor by the name of DeBron, and he made maps for the British. And he drew many, many maps of this area that we're in right now. And this was still fresh water right now, all the way up to here. There's like a bird estuary on the right, where the birds come to sleep at night, immediately on your right. And this is the ending of the fresh water, and the salt water picks up right here, right now on your right. There's a little wooded area, and at night thousands of birds fly in here every night, and I think they've done it for thousands of years. That's John Anderson. John Anderson was where the Dixie Highway turned and went south on John Anderson. It ended up at Henry Flagler's new hotel in Ormond, and that's where the Dixie Highway went. Now, this didn't exist. There wasn't a bridge here. There was a flatboat that would take your car across the canal right here. Now, on your right, this is all salt water. This is tidal flats. This is called the Betty Steflack Preserve. And there's quite a story here. There was a landing field right here on your right there was a runway. There's 2 runways immediately on your right in this Betty Stafflack. This is a walking tour. There's these wood walkways. You could walk all over here, see birds, animals, all sorts of wildlife here. This is a tidal flat, meaning that the tide goes in and out. And to get there, it's the first turn off the bridge, which takes you down. Now, they're doing aviation days, which is coming up, because there was an airfield here. And Lindbergh made an emergency landing here and spent the weekend in Flagler Beach. This is the little road that goes down to the Betty Stafflack Preserve on your right. But I again suggest that you do this on nice weather. There's a wooden walkway, and you can see all sorts of wildlife, birds, wonderful things. But there was also an airfield there, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that airfield in a moment, because in 1942 we had German U-boats here. This was the front yard of the hotel right here, and the hotel is long gone, but this was the front yard. Lindbergh stayed in the hotel over the weekend. The casino was right here where Finn's is, and there was a fishing pier right here, which was later blown down by a hurricane. But the original Flagler Pier was right here. This was called Ocean City, and it was promoted by one of the Moody brothers. This was a great resort, 1918, 1919. Of course, the Flagler Beach Pier wasn't here at that time. This A1A didn't exist. This was all sand, sloping sand. There was a humongous beach here, which doesn't exist anymore, because as the ocean has moved, the beach has disappeared. But here is one of the coolest spots in Flagler County. This is the Flagler Beach Museum. And most of the demonstrations here or displays are put in here by volunteers. And it goes all the way from the space age, because one of the residents here was an astronaut, and it goes all the way to the ancient Indians. Now, if we toot our horn, maybe a docent will come out like a little cuckoo clock. Let's see if we can get a docent to come out. Ah, yay, docent.
What did I hear? I heard something about a docent. Hi, everybody. Hi. I hope you're having a good tour.
Yes.
Right now, you're sitting in front of the Flagler Beach Historical Museum. We are a museum that is open 7 days a week. We are open from 10 to 4 daily. Our museum is run by docents, so there's no charge to come into the museum. We have a restroom, we have water fountains, we have many artifacts that go back to the Stone Age all the way up to the Space Age. So there's a lot of very interesting things for you to come in and see. So if you're ever downtown, if you're walking around, just stop in. Like I said, we're open 7 days a week, 10 to 4 every day. Now we have a special aviation days coming up next week. It's going to be 3 days. It starts next Wednesday, because there was an airstrip out here on the beach. So we have a lot of people that were involved, their families were involved with this. This goes way back. So I'm going to leave some brochures here with Bill Ryan. So if anybody wants a brochure, like I said, it's going to be 3 days next week, starting on Wednesday. We're going to have a walk. Karen's out doing the walk right now just to see how long.
And a flyover of ancient airplanes, 1930
It's going to be a flyover of some old airplanes. So you'll end up out on the intercoastal when the flyover comes by. So hope you enjoy the rest of your tour, and you get a chance to stop back. Please stop in the museum. And I'm going to leave these with Mr. Ryan. And everybody have a great holiday.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for stopping. Come on in, please.